Hi, Alison here, and I'm at the studio with Rick and Nolen, and we're going to talk about the Star Prairie project.
So the Star Prairie project has just been a collaboration of us two that we met at a jam here in the local area, and I said, "Man, I really like your originals," and I said, "We just got to start recording them." And
Rick and I met at musically at the Star Prairie Jam. It was a get together on Thursday nights in villages Star Prairie where local musicians would come and jam together, and there was some original songs, but most of it was cover songs from cover bands around the area, and it was a great start. But what makes our idea a little bit different was the focus. We wanted to focus on the songwriting and recording aspect. We wanted to make records. That was the idea. Rick has a background in studio engineering, and I wrote poetry for years. And at the Star Prairie Jam 10 years ago or so, I picked up my first guitar and I started learning how to play the guitar and write songs. And like Rick said, after a little while, Rick said, "Hey, we should get together and record a couple of your original tunes." And Rick's got a vast musical background, and he's an awesome guitar player. And so we decided to collaborate as a project. And when I was growing up, Alan Parsons' Project was a studio band at the time. They eventually became huge and started touring and stuff. But in the beginning, the idea was very similar to our idea. Mm-hmm. We wanted to concentrate on songwriting, doing original tunes, and then making records. And we didn't know how we were going to distribute them or produce them or market them. We didn't worry about that. In the beginning, we were just doing the music, and we ended up with quite a body of work in a short period of time. We still have over 30 songs cataloged that we can't get to because we keep writing original stuff, and then we kind of veer off on different paths, and that's really what Shame on the King was. The current effort, we put out 17-song Vision of War a year ago, or last July. That was our first effort, and we were going to come back in the studio and finish up a catalog of music in another second album. But as fate would have it, the first night of that session, Rick was noodling on a riff on his guitar, and he kept on playing it over, and I liked it. And he said, "Well, what should we do tonight?" And I said, "That. We're going to do that." And that was the first song that ended up being "'Cause I'm Thinking About You," the first song off of the 5-song EP. And then we decided we were going to do rock and roll. The Visions of War kind of crossed several genres. There was some folk in it, some country, there was some alternative rock, there was some rock and roll, but it was a pretty broad, eclectic effort. And some of our earlier critiques were, "There ain't enough rock and roll, we need some more guitar." And so that's what we decided to do. We're going to do a 5-song rock and roll EP. We're going to do the EP because we didn't want to do a single. We didn't want to do a whole full-length album. So we said, a 5-song EP would be perfect, because the idea was to do just rock and roll music, do short and sweet, and leave the audience with wanting more.
Right.
And so we used Rick's music, and he wrote, and he just got on a roll, and he started writing, framing out the songs in songwriting format, and then he'd give it to me, and I'd add the words, and we'd get back in the studio, put them together, and bring in some local artists, other musicians from around the area that we knew to help us out. And
Sure.
The whole thing didn't take long. I mean, Shame on the King took 6-7 months.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe your sound?
well, it's continuously changing, because he'll come up with a riff, and then I'll come up with something, and it, like, when I wrote the music for Queen Isabella, it was going to be a country song. Mm-hmm. I totally thought it was going to be a country song. And then when he came back with the lyrics, it totally changed.
Right.
And it, for the better. And so, I don't know, we can kind of be folky sometimes, but we have a rock edge too, and
Yeah, that's one of
and
one of the most interesting aspects of the project is that we didn't go in with an identity. We didn't sit down and say, let's do a country song.
Just open jam kind of.
Well, it's one of the first songs that I wrote was Old Dirt Road off the Visions of War. It was a country song, as country as you could get. And we simply used a guitar, a country voice, and a harmonica. But I had no idea that I would ever write a country song. I listen to country music every once in a while, but it's not my primary genre. It's not,
Sure.
and it just came. And same with some of the folk tunes. It was surprising that some of we have a song called "The Rain Is Falling" off of Visions of War that is so different. It's very melodical. It's almost 50-ish, 40s, 50-ish. Rick's got some sound effects of some thunderstorms, and it's something Patsy Cline-ish or before.
but it can also sound like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Or Pink Floyd.
So we're kind of like,
Fantastic.
Yeah, like
it's a continuously evolving. It's
the first. I remember the first song we did off the first session. That was Visions of War sessions. I'd written a song called "Welcome to My World." It was going to be sort of a protest song, and I'd written it with a acoustic guitar, and I was doing some fancy walking around the chords using open chords, and I brought it in to Rick, and he did the guitar solo, and I started playing the rhythm. And the electric guitar just overwhelmed this little lick I had. And I said, screw it, I don't need this open chord G. I need a rock bar chord G. And I started slamming. And when we played back that first song, Welcome to This World, it came out rock and roll.
Nice.
And we looked at each other and went, dude!
exactly what we did.
It was like, wow. I mean, that's one of the beauties of studio recording and original stuff. I mean, a lot of this stuff doesn't work, but when it works, it works. And you look at it like, wow, we did that?
Or you think that something is just going to take off and something else does, and you're like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, Queen Isabella, you asked about Queen Isabella.
Yes, I thought it sounded. My first thought was April Wine, and then Nazareth or Molly Hatchet.
Ooh, Nazareth.
Along
that's
those
good.
lines.
Yeah.
So we do have a lot of southern rock influences too, and of course love Canadian rockers. So
Queen Isabella, the genesis of that song, I think that was, every song is different. And of course, as you write songs, you always think that every song's your best song, but
Sure.
But Queen Isabella was special from the beginning, at least in my mind, it was. Because Rick and we'd get together, and then we'd part ways and get back after about a week, and he'd be working on some parts, and I'd be working on some other parts. Or we decide that we're going to put in some type of a drum cadence or something that totally changes the style or
Sure.
genre. But Queen Isabella, when he wrote it, in the beginning of it, he was messing around with the slide on the electric guitar, and it came out with this eerie, tragic
Yes.
type of in minors. And it was like, whoa. And I was thinking Eleanor Rigby or something tragic. And then I went, oh, okay, I'll take it home and I'll write some lyrics for that.
I thought I heard a little slide in there.
yep.
Yeah. And it had such a mood to it.
Right.
And so when I took the song home, I played it and I played it again. I just played the open song. And because I just wanted to digest the song and let it simmer and see what came out of it. And I remember thinking, I don't want to screw up this song. I don't want to blow this song. It's a really good song, and I got to write lyrics that match and fit the mood of the song, because
Right.
we got something good going here. And as fate would have it, it was the lyrics came to me and I think now when I look back on it, it was based on a documentary on television on the opioid epidemic.
Okay.
I was channel surfing one night, and I saw this documentary, and they were interviewing a gal, and she was on heroin, and she got addicted on opioids, lost her job, became homeless, and then went to heroin because it was cheaper. And they were interviewing her, and she said, "Wow, I was just a normal kid growing up and go to college. You know, I didn't wake up one day and says, I'm going to be a heroin addict." She goes, "I didn't know I was going to end up doing tricks for trade. I didn't know that any of this stuff would happen." And it was the tragedy of that documentary that must have stuck in my mind, because the first lyrics that came out was Isabella, thunderclaps and lightning flashes, and then I started going, and in 15 minutes I'd had the entire song written.
Nice.
And a friend came by the jam, and she came in the door, and I said, "Stop, don't say a thing." I had my pencil and my pad out, and I was working on it. And when you get into that mood, you're so afraid that you're going to lose it, because
right.
You're on this roll, and it was coming, and it was like, then I wrote it out, and I played it back, and I said, "What do you think of this? What do you think of this?" And it just fit. And so we had the words together with the music, and then we got to figure out, okay, who's going to sing it? Because Rick sings sometimes and I sing sometimes, but we wouldn't consider ourselves singers,
Okay.
Primarily. Mm-hmm. If I do a song or two off an album, I'm fine,
So who's singing?
Yeah, Sean, Xander.
Okay.
Rick knew, you can take it.
Well, Sean Zander was involved with the jam too back when we were playing there, and then I played in a band with him for years around here, and we brought him over to sing 944, and we didn't really want to overwhelm him with a bunch of other songs, so we were just like, oh, maybe at the end of the session we'll just ask him what he thinks about this song.
Sure.
And so we got done with the session, everything went smooth for the song, and said, "Hey, what do you think about this one?" And we just kind of played it for him and gave him the lyric sheet. And he was reading through it, and he just said, "Let's do this." And he got up on the
Nice.
microphone, and he just laid down a super emotional track. Mm-hmm. And it was just, he hit it home with that song, and he was a perfect guy to do it. So
yeah, it was perfect. So then we had 3 parts together.
Yeah.
And then Rick's idea was, hey, let's ask Jamie Novak. She's another member of the Star Prairie Jam and a local musician we've known for years.
Oh, she sings the background.
And she sings the harmony.
Yes.
And Rick brought her in, and he said, "Well, what do you think about her doing harmony?" And I go, "God, I don't know. John's is so perfect. Let's, because you never really. Sometimes you think things are going to work and they don't, and sometimes you don't think they're going to work and they do.
Yeah, you're surprised.
And when
it's a
he
good
brought
thing.
Jamie in, and it fit that, and it was like perfect. It was like, oh, this is perfect, and so
it's fascinating how things come together sometimes.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Why don't you tell me about your success on Spotify with Queen Isabella?
Oh, yeah, that's a story in and of itself. When we first put out Visions of War last summer, and we, gave it out to local friends and family and stuff, and there's not really a market for physical, CDs anymore. We did get them distributed on Amazon through CD Baby, but that market essentially is dead.
It sure has. Everything's streaming now.
Yeah, download streaming. It's a digital.
same thing happened with books.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazon changed everything. Mm-hmm. And so we had the CD, and we'd gone through our 300 copies, and then I found Ditto Music out of London, and they distributed it. And so we got it on Spotify and iTunes and Apple Music and Amazon, and it just doesn't go anywhere because it's buried in all of this piles and piles of volumes. The volume in the digital business is amazing. I mean, they literally get the streaming platforms and the download platforms, 40,000 different songs a day, 40, 50,000, 300,000 songs a week.
Right.
And
how do you get your song heard?
Exactly. And when we first did the CD, Shame on the King, I'd actually mentioned to Rick, it's a shame that nobody's going to hear this because it's really good, because I don't know how to market it. I don't know how to promote it. I don't know how to get it out there. And by happenstance, on the 4th of July, I ran into a Spotify promotion advertisement that says, hey, you want to try to get your song promoted? You want to try to get on a playlist? And I went, yeah.
Yeah.
And
That
so
sure boosts things.
And I just signed up for it. And they said, okay, we'll listen to it. We got a lot of competition, but, we'll see what we can do. And then Rick and I were thinking, okay, they're going to come back. Hey, thanks for your input, but, resubmit in 30 days.
Right.
And then they went, yeah,
Don't
sure.
call us, we'll call you.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what we were thinking.
And so they came back and we made the cut, and they said, hey, yeah, we'll agree to do a intro marketing thing, submit your song.
Great.
And so we said, well, what song are we going to submit? We knew it was going to be Queen Isabella.
Yeah.
And so we submitted Queen Isabella, and we were figuring, we had no idea when, we just wanted to get, because a year ago was, how do you get on a playlist? We had no idea. And most musicians don't. And unless you got a record company or a label or somebody, an agent promoting you, you really don't have a chance. But most of these, the playlists that we were on were kind of composed of half old classics like rock and roll songs, and then contemporary artists. And when we got on, we got on one called Hard Rock Playlist on Spotify, and we were on with Pink Floyd, U2, Led Zeppelin. It just blew. And then the modern artists like Jack White, Cage the Elephant, The Folds. I mean, all of these huge
Sure.
contemporary rock bands. And
To hear my guitar between David Gilmour and Jimmy Page was
Nice.
something else. I
Right.
was just like, I can't believe this.
Well, I listen to all different types of genres. And I get turned on to different music by listening to different playlists. So that makes sense.
yeah, and that just, and I was surprised, and I think it's one of the things we got going for us in Star Prairie Project is that we cross over to several different genres. And we didn't know at first, with Visions of War, there's 17 songs on there and there's 3 or 4 genres, and we're going, okay, is this thing, we're not telling a story, but is it flowing? Is this flowing, or is it confusing? Are we kind of jumping people and we giving them whiplash, and I think that we did it flows pretty good.
It must. Do you have how many streams on Spotify?
Yeah. And
How many is it right now for that song?
25,000. We went over 25,000 yesterday.
Right. Congratulations.
So I think we're going to go 30. Who knows? It could go 50. I'm just totally blown away. But the Queen Isabella did really, really good on both the. We thought it would do good on a rock chart, on a rock list, because that's the first thing that just popped in my head. But I was really surprised that it was doing well on the country list and the indie list. But of course, indie's one of those things. How do you define it?
I would agree.
Yeah.
So, Rick, why don't you tell me how the video came about?
Well, the video for Queen Isabella really came about. I was there for a friend's video shoot at the A440 video studios, and I started talking to some of the staff guys there and got to meet them, and they were all musicians and super interested in the project. And one guy came up to me right away, and he just said, "We got to get your band in here." And I didn't even know him. I didn't, I just walked in the door, and so we just started talking about it. And I started talking to Nolen, and I said, we can do a professional video for Vivo, and we should go into A440 and let those guys do their best. And they really did a great job for us.
Yeah, it turned out great. I love the colors and the mood that goes along with the storyline of the song.
Yeah, all those guys, are super talented, and it was pretty much painless when we went in. And we just asked them in the middle to do a little dramatic with the lights going down, and they worked it out really slick for us. So
I think we took 5-6 takes. Whole thing was so relaxed and natural. The whole thing took 2 hours from start to. I think the thing that took the longest was setting up and tearing down the drum.
Sure.
It was just, I mean, everything went totally smooth. They were so professional. And I think from the minute we stepped in the studio to getting it on Vivo channel was 2 weeks. Less. I mean, it was everything just fell into place.
They had a rough copy to us within a week.
And just the scheduling of getting everybody, herding the cats and getting everybody there.
Right.
Was just amazing. We could never do it again.
And it all worked out on Nolan's birthday.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
It was a great day.
I wore my tie-dye shirt that my niece made for me, and with the lights and that effect, it was really cool. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience, and they treated us really well there.
Yeah. It's a great video.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
So we need everybody to go follow us on Spotify and on YouTube.
So Spotify, YouTube, and Vivo.
Yeah. The Vivo
catch
videos are on YouTube, yeah.
Okay. And they can just stream or actually search out
just search
either Queen Isabella or the Star Prairie Project.
Either one, yep.
Either one. Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. We're going to check out their new video, Queen Isabella. So let's have a look.
Isabella, she loved walking in the pouring rain. Thunderclaps and lightning flashing helped ease the pain. Isabella stuck a needle in a scarring vein. As the warm rush overtook her, she knew that she would reign again. She was crowned Queen Isabella in a dive on 5th and Main. She reigned as Queen Isabella, doing tricks for trade. Her subjects, they adored her. She lit their flame. Renowned as Queen Isabella, all the Johns knew the name of the Isabella dreamt of leaving, running far away, fall in love and start a family, soccer mom in East LA. She was crowned Queen Isabella in a dive on 5th and Main. She reigned as Queen Isabella, doing tricks for trade. Her subjects, they adored her. She lit their flame. Renowned as Queen Isabella, all the Johns knew the name of the game. Name of the game. Isabella went missing Tuesday. Not a clue what friends would say. Nothing new by noon on Thursday. The cops, they said to wait a day. Friday night they found Isabella in the dumpster in the pouring rain. OD'd on a fentanyl cocktail, her body wasn't clean. Isabella, she loved walking in the pouring rain. claps and lightning flashing helped ease the pain. She was crowned Queen Isabella in a dive on 5th and Main. She reigned as Queen Isabella, doing tricks for trade. Her subjects, they adored her. She lit their flame. Renowned as Queen Isabella, all the Johns knew the name of the game. Name of the game. Always the same. Ain't it a shame? It's the end of the game. That's it.
Well, I want to thank Rick and Nolen for having me here at
you.
their studio. This
It was fun.
Yeah, it sure was. It was a great time. Thank you.
She was crowned Queen Isabella in the